right. I don't need to say any other thing. Let's quickly move over to our first interview. I hope that Tajudeen Ibrahim is online now. Tajudeen Ibrahim is the head research and strategy, Chapel Hill Denham. Is Tajudeen there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Tajudeen, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm great, and you?
I'm in a great place, according to a friend of mine. Okay, let's take a look at those numbers yesterday. What happened? What really happened? Just simplify it for Nigerians to get the nitty-gritty of those GDP numbers. I'll allow you in 2 minutes to simplify.
Well, thank you very much for having me on this show today. I think if we are to summarize the performance of the Nigerian economy in the last quarter of 2021, what we can comfortably say is that the economy maintained its recovery trend. And there are two key messages, to pass across in this case. The first is that we have the non-oil sector of the Nigerian economy recording positive growth, and and gives hope around future performance of the economy as a whole. And the second message is that the oil sector of the Nigerian economy further contracted in the fourth quarter of 2021. And this gives an indication that there is need for the country to fix whatever the challenges are in the oil sector of the Nigerian economy, so that after the recession, we go back pretty quickly to a growth path. That is what has happened and reported for the fourth quarter of 2021. So if we take a broad view, the non-oil sector is still positive in terms of growth, but the oil sector of the Nigerian economy is still struggling. And we expect the government to respond accordingly to ensure that the oil sector of the Nigerian economy is back to growth. That is what we believe we need in the next couple of quarters, in our view.
For the non-oil sector, it accounted for about 94.81%, an increase from 94.13%. And the non-oil sector, for Nigerians to understand what we're saying, are other sectors excluding oil sector and natural gas. That's crude oil and natural gas. So that's what we mean by non-oil sector. So agriculture and construction, manufacturing, all those sectors are non-oil sectors. But the thing I really want to ask you, for us to see this growth in the non-oil sector, what can you attribute to that growth? What made that sector grow?
So if we break down the non-oil sector of the Nigerian economy, just like you rightly said, that is indicative of what is happening in key sectors such as the trade sector, the telecom sector, the food, or let me say crop production sector, which is a subsector of the agriculture sector of the Nigerian economy, as well as the financial sector, financial services sector of the economy, and then food and beverage and tobacco sector of the Nigerian economy. I have arranged these 5 sectors based on their contribution to the Nigerian economy in the fourth quarter of 2021, and also based on the fact that they had the top 5 growths, in the economy over the quarter. So if we're talking about the non-oil sector, we are referring to growth drivers such as the trade sector, such as the telecom sector, the crop production sector, the financial services sector, and the food and beverage sector. If we talk about trade grew the highest by 8.62%. The telecom sector was the second in terms of impact which grew by 7.28%. The crop production sector, which is a large sector, by value, it grew by 2.27%. And the fourth compelling sector of the Nigerian economy is the financial services sector that grew by 10.53%. That is a double-digit growth. And it is an indication of the efforts of the CBN in driving the growth of the banking sector as a whole, in our view. The fifth sector for consideration is the food, beverage, and tobacco sector that grew by 5.73%. So we will not go into all the sectors, but we believe that these 5 top sectors are compelling from a growth standpoint. They are also compelling from a contribution, to GDP, perspective. So that is really what happened and what, largely speaking, drove the performance of the non-oil sector of the Nigerian economy in the last quarter of 2021.
Now, Tajudeen, I really want to get your honest opinion. If we take a look at these numbers, okay, Nigeria's economy grew 3.4% in 2021. Would you largely say that that is a recovery than growth? Let me put it that way, and I hope you understand what I mean. A recovery from 2 recessions. First recession in 2016, second recession in 2020. So would you say that we've recovered nicely? Because if we're also talking about growth, population growth should be also come in there in terms of that Nigeria's population is growing at about 2.6%, 2.7%. But anyway, when did we do a census? We are due for another census. So we're supposed to be doing census every 10 years, and we've not been able to do that. So we don't even know how much, or yes, by how much we are growing now. But let's leave it with statistics of the UN and all those statistics that Nigeria will grow 450 million by 2050 and all of that. Let's take that. So if you juxtapose it with what we have right now for 2021, will you really say that we are indeed growing, or the 3.4% is a recovery? We've come out from the muds. I hope you understand my logic.
I get the logic,
yes.
And that exactly is the way to, to read the overall growth of the Nigerian economy. If we take it from 2 standpoints, the first standpoint is to consider it from, a recession to recovery viewpoint. From a recession to recovery, viewpoint, then a 3.4% growth for the Nigerian economy is positive, and it should incite, investors. It should incite policymakers. It should incite Nigerians, generally speaking, because it is an indication that we have completely left a period of recession, and we have established sustained recovery. That is one viewpoint. There is another perspective to this, which is what you spoke to much later, which is around comparing the economic growth with what we have in terms of population growth. Population growth for this country over the medium to long term, largely speaking, has been around 2.5%. But considering that we've not had census, you have said it correctly, in the past few years, let us increase that number to around 3% and assume that our population growth for per annum is around 3%. If we put 3% population growth by side by side 3.4% GDP growth, you will see that we are still struggling. We have only 0.4% sort of headroom in terms of how the economic growth has been better compared to population growth. It means that the government, policymakers, and corporate organizations need to fire on all cylinders to ensure that we lift Nigeria's economic growth to its potential. When I say potential, I mean this is an economy that can comfortably grow at 6% rate, 7% rate. That is assuming that we have all the policies in place. That is assuming that we have regulatory development underpinning this growth. So that is where we should be in terms of economic growth. If we are recording 6 to 7% economic growth and we are growing our population by about 3%, then over the medium to long term, we can say Nigeria is recording a healthy growth in terms of economic growth, development, and advancement. But we need to spend more to get to that level. We need to attract more foreign investments to get to that level. Those are the views I have on that front.
Yeah. Thank you, Tajudeen, that you understood my logic, because, or thank you that you understood what I was trying to ask. And thank you for breaking that down, because it's just purely mathematical, so to speak. So what we should even be celebrating, what we should celebrate or strive to get is double-digit growth. And I can't remember since when we've been talking about it. We've been talking about it now for over 10, 15 years, that we need to grow at double digits. With that, we are able to balance out, lift more poor people out of poverty and all of that. But I want to ask you this question just before we go. What do you think has been the impact of helicopter money that we've seen in 2020 and in 2021? And I hope you understand what I mean. Helicopter money in terms of the increase in money supply around sectors that would have died, especially from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Let me put it that way, at least sectors such as food, for MSMEs and all of that. Did you see that impact, especially in this final quarter of 2021 and the full year of 2021?
So yes, I think there is some element of that impact on the Nigerian economy in the final quarter of 2021. And I say that because I have talked about growth in the trade sector. 8.62%, that's the growth recorded by the trade sector in the final quarter of 2021. And what that speaks to, it speaks to domestic trades. It speaks to international trades. And if we talk about domestic trades, you find medium, small, and enterprises on the forefront in terms of how their businesses are driving growth in the Nigerian economy. You go to major markets in Lagos, major markets in the eastern part of Nigeria, you go to major markets in the northern part of this country, you find micro, small, and medium enterprises driving growth in their own way. They are largely speaking the informal sector of the Nigerian economy, so people don't really pay attention to them. But there's a report that says that we have close to 40 to 42 million of such businesses in this country. That is where we can see an uptick in terms of economic growth that is sustainable. When you have such small businesses being supported by the central bank, being supported by the commercial banks, then you will understand that there is much room in terms of economic growth. And if we bring it down to the markets, we are talking about how the capital markets can also underpin the growth of the micro, small, and medium enterprises. If we have a pool of funds that can lend to these small businesses, the growth of that sector is going to accelerate further. So I would say that credit schemes by the central bank and also by some other banks in Nigeria had a part to play in terms of the growth that we saw in the final quarter of 2021. But the question now is, are those funding or the schemes, are they enough? The answer is no. We can do more, we can do better to ensure that we finance all those small businesses. We make capital available to them to drive their growth. The shop owners in some corners of Lagos and some corners of major cities in Nigeria are doing relatively well, but they need more money, they need more capital to drive the growth of their business. And if we get that for them, we are going to, largely speaking, solve some of their problems, which is partly capital in our view.
Tajudeen, thank you very much for joining us today. Let's speak sometime again soon, because there's so much to dissect in this report, so many sectors, and we also need to dig in, and take a look at it. But many thanks for joining us today.